My son booked me a luxury cruise for my birthday. Then a stranger at the airport whispered my name. The airport smelled like burnt coffee and recycled air. Somewhere behind me, a child was crying with the steady rhythm of someone who had been at it long enough to turn grief into background noise. Flight announcements echoed off the tile floors in voices too calm for the chaos they were managing. I stood near Gate 12 with a boarding pass in one hand and a carry-on bag my daughter-in-law had packed for me. Navy blue, wheeled, still had the price tag tucked inside the front pocket. I found it that morning when I went looking for my reading glasses. The cruise ticket was in my jacket pocket. Glossy, heavy cardstock, the kind of paper that wants you to know it cost money. My name was printed across the front in gold lettering. Walter Hargrove. Below it, a ship name, a departure port, and 14 days across the Caribbean. A gift from my son, for my 72nd birthday. I was adjusting my bag when a man in a blue airport jacket appeared beside me. Not in front, beside. Close enough that I could smell the industrial soap on his hands. He leaned toward my ear and said my name. Not loudly, like a secret he wasn't sure he should be telling. "Mr. Hargrove," he said again, quieter this time, almost under his breath. "Don't board that flight yet." I turned. He was maybe 50, medium build, dark skin, wire-framed glasses that sat slightly crooked on his nose. His airport badge read, Marvin Pike, Terminal Operations. His hands were at his sides, but his fingers were moving, tapping against his thighs in a rhythm that had nothing to do with music. "Do I know you?" I asked. "No, sir," he said, "but I know your name, and there's something you should see before you get on that plane." His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. They moved between my face and the boarding area, like a man calculating how much time he had before someone noticed what he was doing. I looked at him. 72 years of living teaches you a few things. One of them is how to read a face. Fear looks different than deception. Deception holds steady. Fear trembles at the edges. This man was afraid, not of me, of what he was about to say. "Who are you?" I asked. He swallowed. "Someone who noticed something I shouldn't have." He stepped back slightly, put distance between us. The way someone does when they realize they've gotten too close to a stranger and need to give both of them room to decide what happens next. "I work terminal operations," he said. "But before this, I spent 11 years at a title company doing property verification, document searches, ownership audits. I left banking because the work made me feel like I was reading other people's lives without permission." He paused, adjusted his glasses. "This morning, a notification came through a system I still have access to. A flag on a property transfer. Your name was attached. I recognized it because it matched a passenger on today's outbound list. Terminal B, Gate 12. My hand tightened on my bag handle. Not from fear. From something closer to altitude sickness. That feeling you get when the ground shifts beneath you and your inner ear hasn't caught up yet. "I'm not supposed to be telling you this," he said. "I could lose my job, but something about the timing felt wrong, and I couldn't let you walk onto that plane without knowing." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small tablet. "I think you should look at this," he said. His hands were still shaking. "My name is Walter Hargrove. I am 72 years old. I spent 41 years building a construction company from a single pickup truck and a toolbox my father gave me the year I turned 19. I poured foundations, framed walls, ran wire through houses that are still standing in neighborhoods where my grandchildren play. I retired 8 years ago, sold the company to a former foreman who promised to keep the name. He did. Hargrove Construction still operates out of the same office on Millbrook Road, with the same sign I hung myself in 1987. My wife Clara died 5 years ago, ovarian cancer, quick and without fairness. She was 65. We had been married for 43 years. The last thing she said to me was, "Don't let the house get cold, Walter." She meant the thermostat. She also meant everything else. I have one son, Evan, 38. Ambitious in the way that makes a father proud until it starts making him nervous. Evan gave me a cruise for my birthday, 2 weeks, Caribbean, everything paid. And now a stranger at Gate 12 was showing me a screen that suggested the trip was never what I thought it was. That moment changed how I saw my own son. 2 weeks before the airport, Evan had walked into my kitchen on a Saturday morning. He didn't knock. He never did. He used the side door, the one that stuck, unless you lifted the handle slightly while turning the knob. He knew the trick. He had grown up learning it. He was smiling, not his professional smile. The one he used at closings and client dinners and networking events, where everyone talked about money the way teenagers talk about music. This was different, wider, less practiced. The smile of a boy carrying a surprise he couldn't wait to hand over. "Dad," he said, "you're turning 72. That's not nothing." I was standing at the stove making eggs. The skillet was the same cast iron Clara bought at a yard sale in '94, seasoned black, heavy enough to anchor a boat. "Sit down," he said. "I've got something for you." He pulled a chair out from the kitchen table. The legs scraped the linoleum. The same sound they'd made for 30 years. The same floor, the same table. The same kitchen where Clara taught him to roll biscuits when he was 6, and he covered himself in flour and laughed until his face turned red. He reached into his jacket and placed an envelope on the table. "Open it," he said. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, the kind of stationery that exists specifically to make what's inside feel important. No return address, no stamp, just my name written across the front in Evan's handwriting. Clean, slanted slightly to the right. The penmanship of a man who had been taught to write neatly, but was always in too much of a hurry to do it properly. I opened it with my thumbnail. Inside was a card, and inside the card was the ticket. A luxury cruise. 14 days, departing from Fort Lauderdale. Stops in Nassau, St. Thomas, Cozumel, Grand Cayman. A cabin with a balcony and an ocean view. Meals included. Shore excursions arranged. I held the ticket the way you hold something fragile. Not because it would break, because the gesture behind it felt too large to grip casually. 2 weeks in the Caribbean, Evan said. He leaned back in the chair and crossed his arms, proud, beaming. The posture of a man presenting a gift he wanted you to know he could afford. "Evan," I said, "this is too much." "No, it's not," he said. "You spent your whole life taking care of me. Let me take care of you for once." The words sounded perfect. That should have been my first warning. Perfect words are usually rehearsed. I held the ticket for a long time. Turned it over. Read the fine print. The ship name was the Celeste. The departure date was October 14th. My birthday was October 12th. The timing was designed to feel like a celebration extending beyond a single day. Clara would have loved this. She always wanted to travel by water. She used to clip cruise advertisements from magazines and leave them on the nightstand the way some people leave hints about jewelry. Not demanding, just hopeful. We never went. There was always a project, always a contract, always a reason the money needed to go somewhere more practical. I told her we'd go when I retired. Then I retired and she got sick 3 months later. The ticket in my hand carried the weight of that broken promise. Not from Evan, from me. "You deserve this, Dad," Evan said. And maybe I did. Maybe that was the problem. When someone gives you exactly what you've been longing for, you don't examine the wrapping. You don't check the seams. You just hold it and feel grateful and let the warmth of the gesture blind you to the architecture behind it. I looked at my son across the kitchen table and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. It would be the most expensive feeling I ever had. After Clara died, the house changed, not structurally. I maintained it the way I maintained everything. Gutters cleaned in November, furnace serviced in September, roof inspected every 2 years. The house was sound. But sound and full are different things. The hallway felt longer without her voice filling it. The bedroom felt wider without her shape beside me in the dark. The kitchen, where she had spent more hours than any room in the house, became a place I moved through quickly instead of a place I lingered. I started eating meals standing at the counter, not because I was in a hurry, because sitting at the table alone meant looking at the empty chair across from me, and the empty chair had a way of making the food taste like nothing. The house held everything. Clara's garden tools in the shed. Her reading glasses still in the drawer of the nightstand. The quilt she made the winter before the diagnosis, folded at the foot of the bed, the stitching slightly uneven in the corners because her hands were already starting to weaken, though neither of us knew why yet. The cruise felt like a doorway. A way out of the quiet. A week of ocean air and unfamiliar rooms and the possibility that grief might loosen its grip if I gave it enough distance. I said yes the same afternoon. Evan hugged me, and the hug felt real. I told him it was too expensive. He laughed. The easy laugh of a man who has practiced dismissing concerns about money. "Dad, I'm doing well," he said. "The firm is growing. We just closed on a development in March. I can afford to do this." Evan worked in real estate development, not the kind I understood. Not the kind where you pour a foundation and frame a house and hand someone keys. The kind where numbers moved across screens and properties changed hands without anyone touching a nail. He was good at it. Or at least he was good at looking like he was good at it. He wore the right clothes, drove the right car, lived in a neighborhood where the lawns were maintained by services and the garages held vehicles that had never been near a construction site. Dana, his wife, was the same. Polished, pleasant. The kind of woman who complimented your curtains while mentally redecorating the room. She sent me birthday cards with printed signatures and gift baskets from companies I had never heard of. They visited once a month, sometimes twice. Always brief. Always with an energy that suggested they had somewhere more important to be, but were too polite to say so. I told Evan the cruise was generous. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You spent your whole life taking care of me." That sentence, I would later learn, was the lock on a door he had already opened behind my back. There were small things, the kind you notice but file away because the larger gesture overshadows them, the way sunlight makes you squint past the shadows. The first was the insistence on driving me to the airport himself. Not unusual on its own. But Evan didn't offer. He insisted. When I mentioned taking a cab, his voice changed, just slightly. The way a note shifts when a string is tightened half a turn too far. "I'm driving you, Dad." End of discussion. The second was the packing. Dana came by 2 days before my departure with a navy blue carry-on bag and a list of things she had already placed inside. Shirts, shorts, sunscreen, a new pair of deck shoes still in the box. "You don't need to worry about a thing," she said. Smiling, efficient. The posture of a woman checking items off a list that had been written long before I saw it. The third was the timing. The cruise departed 3 days after my birthday. I would be gone for 14 days. That meant 17 days total away from my house. 17 days. At the time, the number felt like generosity. Later, it felt like a window. Evan drove me to the airport on a Tuesday morning, October 14th. The sky was overcast and the highway was quiet for that time of day. He played a jazz station on the radio, something soft, piano and bass, the kind of music that fills a car without asking for attention. We didn't talk much. That wasn't unusual. Evan and I had never been the kind of father and son who filled silence with conversation. We existed comfortably in the spaces between words, or at least I thought we did. He parked in the short-term lot, got out, pulled my bag from the trunk and set it on the curb. Then he hugged me. Longer than usual. His arms went around my shoulders and he held on for 4, maybe 5 seconds past the point where a normal hug ends. His hand pressed flat against my back. His chin rested on my shoulder. "Don't worry about anything back home," he said. "Just enjoy yourself." I patted his arm. "I'll be fine. It's just 2 weeks." He nodded, smiled, squeezed my shoulder one more time. Then I turned toward the terminal doors and heard him step away. I glanced back. He was already on his phone, holding it close to his ear. His free hand was in his pocket. His posture had changed. His voice, just barely reaching me, sounded tense. I walked into the terminal. The automatic doors parted with a breath of pressurized air. Inside, the floor was polished to the point of reflection. I could see myself in it. A 72-year-old man in a gray jacket and comfortable shoes pulling a navy bag toward a screen that listed departures in yellow text. I found my flight. Fort Lauderdale, Gate 12, on time. I made my way through security, took off my belt, placed my shoes in a plastic bin. Stood with my arms raised inside the scanner while a woman in a uniform studied a screen I couldn't see. These small humiliations of modern travel. Clara hated them. She used to say airports were designed by people who had never actually used one. I collected my things on the other side and walked toward the gate. The terminal was busy but not crowded. Business travelers in dark suits, families with too many bags, a couple in matching sneakers holding hands near a coffee kiosk. I found a seat near Gate 12 and sat down. Set my bag beside me. pulled out the cruise ticket and looked at it again. Gold letters. My name. And that's when I noticed the man in the blue jacket. He was standing near a column, 15 feet away, looking directly at me. He had been watching me for a while. I'm sure of that now. Not in the way security watches, not scanning or assessing. In the way someone watches when they're trying to make a decision. The way you stand on the edge of a pool deciding whether to jump. He was holding a small tablet against his chest. His airport badge was clipped to his jacket pocket. His shoes were the kind you wear when you stand all day. Rubber soles, scuffed at the toe. I caught his eye. He looked away, then back, then away again. The pattern of a man arguing with himself. I almost ignored him, almost turned back to my boarding pass and my Navy bag and the golden promise of 14 days at sea. Almost let the moment pass, the way we let most moments pass, because the cost of paying attention is sometimes higher than the cost of looking away. But something held me. Not instinct exactly. Something older. The same sense that used to stop me on a job site when a beam didn't look right or a measurement felt off by a fraction too small to explain, but too large to ignore. He took a breath, made his decision, and walked toward me with the posture of a man who knew he was about to change someone's day. He sat down beside me, not in the adjacent seat, one seat over, leaving a gap between us that was too small to be accidental and too large to be intimate. The precise distance of a man who wanted to talk but also wanted the option to walk away. He pulled the tablet from his chest and held it on his knee. The screen was dark. "Mr. Hargrove," he said, "I work terminal operations here, but before that, I spent over a decade doing property research for a regional bank, title searches, ownership verification, transfer documentation." I listened. My hands were on my knees. Still. This morning, a notification came through a system I still monitor. An old habit. I scan flags on property transfers in the Tri-County area because I know the landscape and I notice when things don't fit. He tapped the tablet. The screen woke. A document appeared. Dense text. Legal formatting. The kind of language that doesn't waste a word but makes you read every one twice. "Your name appeared," he said. "Attached to a property you own. A transfer request was filed, not by you." He turned the tablet toward me. I looked at the screen, and the golden letters on the cruise ticket in my pocket suddenly felt like a different kind of weight. It wasn't a flight record. It wasn't a reservation confirmation or a booking reference or anything connected to the trip. It was a property transfer notice, filed with the county recorder's office, dated 4 days ago. The address listed was mine, 14 Ridgecrest Lane. The house Clara and I bought in 1986. The house where I raised my son. The house where my wife died in the bedroom on the second floor with the window cracked open because she wanted to hear the birds one more time. The filing requested a transfer of ownership into a revocable trust. The trust name was listed as Hargrove Family Holdings. I had never heard of it. I had never authorized it. My signature did not appear anywhere on the document, but another name did. Evan Hargrove, listed as trustee and managing beneficiary. I stared at the screen. My reflection stared back from the glass between the lines of text. An old man in a gray jacket holding a cruise ticket, reading a document that rearranged everything he thought he knew about his own son. Marvin sat quietly beside me. He didn't speak. He let the screen do the work. The flight announcement for Fort Lauderdale echoed through the terminal. I didn't hear it. I read it again, every line. The trust name, the filing date, the property address, the description of the house reduced to legal language, lot size, square footage, year of construction, assessment value, my house, my life, reduced to data points in a document I never signed. The filing was incomplete. Marvin pointed that out. The transfer hadn't been finalized. It was pending, awaiting additional signatures and a notarized authorization that hadn't been provided yet. "It's not done," he said, "but the intent is clear." Intent. The word sat in my stomach, like a stone dropped into water too shallow to absorb it. Evan wasn't just giving me a cruise, he was giving me a window. A 17-day window during which I would be unreachable, distracted, surrounded by ocean in every direction. A window during which paperwork could move. Signatures could be forged or obtained through secondary channels. A sale could be arranged. I looked at the departure gate. Passengers were lining up, boarding passes out, bags in hand. the orderly procession of people moving toward something they had chosen. I had not chosen this. The cruise was not a gift, it was distance. I turned the tablet back toward Marvin. He took it, held it against his chest again. His face was tight, the expression of a man who has done something he believes is right but isn't sure the consequences will agree. "Why did you tell me?" I asked. He looked at the floor, then at me. "My mother lost her house," he said. "Not like this. Foreclosure. Different circumstances. But someone saw the paperwork before she did, and they didn't say anything. By the time she found out, it was too late." He pressed his lips together. The memory was still close. Close enough to touch. "I saw your name this morning, and then I saw you standing at the gate with your bag and your ticket and this look on your face like a man who finally had something to look forward to. And I thought about my mother, standing in her kitchen, finding out the house was already gone." His voice dropped. "I couldn't let that happen again," he said. "Not if I could stop it." I looked at this man, this stranger in a blue jacket with crooked glasses and scuffed shoes, who had no reason to help me except the memory of his mother and the courage to act on it. "Thank you," I said. It was the most important sentence I had spoken in years. The boarding line shortened. Final call came through the speaker. My name was printed on a pass that would take me to Fort Lauderdale, to a ship called the Celeste, to 14 days of ocean and sunshine, and the specific kind of freedom that comes from not knowing what's happening at home. That freedom was the point. I understood it now. The generosity, the insistence, the new bag and the deck shoes, and the hug that lasted 5 seconds too long. "Don't worry about anything back home." That sentence played back in my head with different music behind it. Not the warm strings of a son caring for his aging father. The cold, mechanical precision of a man clearing the stage before the performance. The cruise wasn't kindness, it was logistics. The same way you remove furniture from a room before you repaint. You move the obstacle first, make the space empty, then do what you came to do. I was the obstacle, my house was the room, and Evan had booked me a luxury cabin on the other side of the Atlantic so he could rearrange my life without me in it. I picked up my bag, looked at the gate one last time, then I turned and walked the other direction. Marvin explained as we stood near a quiet corridor between gates. His voice was low, steady now. The shaking had stopped. Saying the truth out loud had settled something in him. "The filing came through a digital portal that title companies use for county records," he said. "I still have a login from my banking days. It's technically read-only, but the alerts are live. When a property in my old territory flags for a transfer, I get a notification." He showed me the routing. The trust document had been prepared by an attorney's office in the next county, not Evan's usual firm. A different one. Smaller. The kind of office that handles volume work and doesn't ask too many questions about who's sitting across the table. The trust was structured to absorb the property, hold it briefly, and then allow for a sale. The sale date listed in the preliminary paperwork was October 22nd, 8 days after my departure. While I sat on a ship watching sunsets over open water, my son intended to sell the house I had lived in for 38 years. I thought about the side door that sticks unless you lift the handle, about the cast iron skillet Clara bought in '94, about the quilt at the foot of the bed with the uneven stitching. All of it. Priced, scheduled, sold before I came home. I stood in the terminal corridor and let the full weight of it settle onto my chest. Not all at once, in layers. The way a heavy coat feels heavier the longer you wear it. I thought about Evan in my kitchen 2 weeks ago. The smile, the envelope, the way he said, "You deserve this," with the conviction of a man who had already done the math and decided the investment was worth the return. I thought about Dana packing the bag, folding shirts with the efficiency of someone preparing a room for a guest who wouldn't be coming back anytime soon. I thought about the hug in the parking lot. "Don't worry about anything back home." The sentence that had sounded like love and now sounded like a lock clicking shut from the outside. He had planned this, not in the heat of a single bad decision, over weeks, maybe months. The attorney, the trust document, the filing, the timing. The cruise booked to coincide precisely with the window needed to complete the transfer and arrange the sale. This was not impulsive. This was architecture. My son, The man I taught to swing a hammer and read a blueprint had designed the removal of my life with the same precision I used to build houses. The difference was, I built things that stood. He was trying to take one down. I didn't board the plane. I picked up my Navy bag with the price tag still inside the front pocket. I walked past the gate, past the coffee kiosk, past the couple in matching sneakers, past the security checkpoint where I collected my shoes an hour earlier like a man with somewhere to be. The terminal doors opened and the outside air hit me. October. Cool. Carrying the faint smell of jet fuel and wet pavement, a bus idled at the curb. Taxis lined the pickup lane in a patient yellow row. I stood on the sidewalk and breathed. The air felt different now. Not colder, just more honest. The kind of air that doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is. I pulled my phone from my jacket pocket. Old model, cracked screen protector. 3 numbers on speed dial. Evan, my dentist, and a woman named Helena Brooks. Helena had been my attorney for 22 years. She handled my business contracts when Hargrove Construction was still operating. She reviewed the company sale. She drafted Clara's estate documents. She was 70 years old, semi-retired, and the sharpest person I had ever sat across from at a desk. I pressed her number. She answered on the second ring. "Walter?" she said. "It's been a while." "Helena," I said, "I need your help." By 2 o'clock that afternoon, I was sitting in Helena's office. Same building she had occupied for 30 years. Red brick, second floor. A window that overlooked a parking lot and a hardware store that used to be mine before I sold it and it became a sandwich shop. Her desk was organized the way operating rooms are organized. Everything in position. Everything with a purpose. A brass lamp, a legal pad, a fountain pen she used for final drafts, and a ballpoint for everything else. I told her everything. The cruise. The airport. Marvin. The property transfer notice, the trust with my son's name on it, the sale date, 8 days into my supposed vacation. She listened the way she always listened, without moving, without writing, just absorbing. When I finished, she picked up the ballpoint pen and made 3 notes on the legal pad. Then she set the pen down. "The filing is incomplete," she said. "The transfer requires your notarized signature or a valid power of attorney. Does Evan hold power of attorney over your affairs?" "No," I said. "Then the transfer cannot proceed without forgery or fraud." She said the word fraud the way a surgeon says the name of a disease. Without flinching, without softening it, just identification. "Your house is still yours, Walter, fully." We spent the next 2 hours building a response. Not an emotional one, a structural one. The kind I understood from 40 years of construction. You don't fight a crack in a foundation by yelling at it. You reinforce the walls around it and make the structure stronger than the weakness. Helena drafted 3 documents. The first was a formal objection to the property transfer filing, submitted directly to the county recorder's office. It would freeze the process immediately. The second was a revision to my estate plan. The house, my savings, and the remaining proceeds from the company sale would be placed into a trust controlled by an independent trustee. Not Evan, not Dana. A neutral third party selected by Helena. The third document was a letter, addressed to the attorney's office that had prepared Evan's trust filing. It stated, in language so precise it could have been used as a blade, that any further action regarding the property at 14 Ridgecrest Lane without the express written consent of the owner would be treated as attempted fraud and reported to the state bar. I signed all 3. My hand was steady. The same hand that had signed contracts and permits and payroll checks for 4 decades. "What now?" I asked. Helena removed her glasses and set them on the desk. "Now," she said, "we wait and we watch." Helena suggested something I hadn't considered. Not confrontation. Patience. "Your son believes you're on a ship," she said. "Let him continue believing that. People reveal more when they think their plan is working. They move faster. They make mistakes. They leave evidence they would otherwise hide." I understood the logic. It was the same principle I used on job sites when a subcontractor cut corners. You don't confront them at the moment of the shortcut, you let them finish. Then you show them the inspection report. The evidence speaks louder than the accusation. So I went home, unpacked the Navy bag, hung the shirts Dana had folded, put the deck shoes back in their box, set the cruise ticket on the kitchen counter where the morning light would hit it. I didn't call Evan. I didn't answer his text that evening that said, "Hope you're having a great time, Dad," with an exclamation point that now read like punctuation on a lie. I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where he handed me the envelope, the same table, the same chair, the same cast-iron skillet on the stove, seasoned black and heavy enough to anchor a boat. The house was quiet, but it was mine, and for the first time in a long time, I guarded it like it mattered. Because it did. More than I had realized until someone tried to take it. 25. 3 days later, Evan came by. He used the side door, lifted the handle while turning the knob. The same trick he'd known since he was 12. He walked in the kitchen and stopped. I was sitting at the table, coffee in front of me, the cruise ticket beside my cup, my reading glasses on, the morning light coming through the window the way it always did, landing on the counter like a stripe of warm paint. "Dad," he said. His voice cracked on the single syllable, the sound of a man arriving at a scene that doesn't match the one he had scripted. "I thought you were." "I didn't go," I said. His face changed, not all at once, in layers. The way paint peels when you apply heat. First the surface, then the primer underneath, then the bare wood that was always there but hidden beneath everything he had built on top of it. His mouth opened, nothing came out. Then the hallway floorboard creaked. Helena stepped into the kitchen from the living room where she had been waiting. She carried a folder. She set it on the table between us, beside the cruise ticket, beside the coffee. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't need to. Evan looked at the folder, at her face, at mine, and understood. "Sit down, Evan," I said. He sat. The folder opened. The documents spread across the table like a map of everything he thought I would never see. And in my own kitchen, in the house I built, at the table where his mother taught him to roll biscuits, my son learned something I should have taught him long ago. A gift can hide a lie, but patience always reveals the truth. And the man he tried to remove was still sitting exactly where he had always been, at the head of the table, in the house that would remain his. For as long as the walls stood,